we've got another frame to look at. I know, a novelty for this channel, looking at a frame, but here we are, 4-inch frame from AMAXinno. Oh, hello there, welcome back to my channel, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Anyway, back to the frame. Yes, we've got a frame from AMAXinno. Interesting company, makes some very, very good motors. They also make frames. I've got one of their 3-inch frames from a couple of years ago. Very nice little flyer, like it. So we're going to see what we do with this size that's starting to come back now, the 4-inch frame size. We've seen some long range 4-inch, and this is a bit more of a freestyle design. And it's good because we're thinking about trying to get under that 250 grams, but also getting quads that fly nicely, that have that 5-inch feel. Some people are trying to have really powerful 3-inch quads, really light and efficient 5-inch quads, but perhaps 4-inch quads could be the right size for us to get under 250 grams, but get that flight performance that we're after. So this frame is, as we said, from AMAXinno. It's their F4Mini 4-inch frame. So let's have a look and see what we get inside the packaging. So what do we get in the packaging? Let's have a look. Everything's there, and get it all out. That's everything. Oh no, there was more bits. Oh, okay. So let's sort all this out and then we'll see what we can do with it. So this is everything we get, just sort of laid out a bit more neatly. Get a sticker with the slightly strange muscular bee, I think, with wings perhaps. I have no idea. Anyway, but that's the sticker you get there, so there you go. We've got a little XT60 here, an AMAS one, which is nice, but not really an XT60 that I want to use because it has these little parts here to fix down, so I probably won't use this one, but it's nice that they give that to you if you decide to use it. We've got some battery straps here, very good. We get two is often good for strapping down certainly larger lipos. 2 battery straps often recommended for 5-inch, and on this frame I think it's a bit larger than your average 4-inch, so we might use both of those as well. It's very nice. We've got these really cute little foam pads, little foam feet that some pilots like to put on their quads on the bottom, so that when they land, if they've got a top mounted lipo, if they land down perhaps on some concrete, it doesn't scuff up and scratch all the screws and everything underneath. And normally they're significantly larger than this, so these are quite cute little small ones that you could perhaps use if you wanted to. That's how you like to set up your builds. We've got some arms here. I've actually bought some spare arms for this particular quad. It's always good to have extra arms, but they seem very, very tough. We'll get them all out in a second. We'll put it all together. So we've got our arms. So I've got some spare arms. I'd always recommend, if you're buying a frame, while you're buying the frame, if you can, check to see what sort of spare parts are about. And if there are some spare arms available, chuck that in the order as well. Normally 5, 10, maybe £15 for a couple of arms. Probably less than that, to be honest. I mean, most of the time, you know, 6 or 7 quid for a couple of arms is normally what you pay. But it depends on obviously the manufacturer and the price of the frame. But I always recommend perhaps getting some spare arms, because they're the thing you're going to break most likely, and waiting around for an arm to turn up in the post is not great. So yeah, some arms there, get some spare arms, sort that out, spare parts, and make sure you can get spare parts. Some frame manufacturers as well make a nice frame, great, got some spares, and then you come back when perhaps you've broken an arm or broken a top plate or something, want to get a spare part, and the frame's discontinued and they don't have spares anymore. So it's always good to have spares at the beginning so that you can use that frame maybe for a couple of years. When you get tired of it, change it over, whatever, but you can use it for a couple of years and then you've got some spare parts just in case. That's a good tip for you there. Anyway, back to this frame, and we've got some top and bottom plates. This has sort of slightly strange design, sort of split deck kind of design to it, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, nice looking carbon steel, which is good. And then we've got all very nicely packaged all our hardware, and we've got foam pads, and we've got sort of different size heat shrink depending on what we need it for, some pre-cut sort of braided nylon rope with the center coils removed. A lot of pilots like to use these to run their motor wires through, and then a bit of heat shrink here, top and bottom, or just on the top next to the motor, and it looks a really nice, really neat build. The only problem I can see when you're doing that is if you have to change an arm, it can be a right pain, and maybe you've only got, you haven't got any more lengths of braided nylon cord or whatever, and you just end up with one arm looking weird where you've had to change it. So you can do that, and it does look really nice, and a lot of pilots love to make their quads look really, really nice, and I can appreciate that. But yeah, I probably won't be using that just because I want ease of maintenance. But it's there if you want to do that with the other bits of black heat shrink there. Then plus we've got some standoffs and all our screws and hardware and everything else. So that's all nicely laid out for us there. So these are all the parts that we've got. No instructions unfortunately, but it should be a relatively straightforward build. So what we'll do is we'll put the frame together now, and we'll come back and then we'll take some measurements, weight, and we'll get the calipers out and all that sort of nonsense. Right, so let's put the frame together. So here we are with our finished frame, all looking very nice and shiny. Here we are, all gone together very well, nice and strong, not really getting any flex across the arms there, which is good. So yeah, it went together okay. AMAX frames can have some issues. I would say getting this frame is not for beginners. You do need to know what you're doing. There's no instructions. You kind of have to work it out from looking at pictures online or videos like this. Perhaps not. There's many videos featuring AMAX products, which is a shame because they make good stuff. But yeah, so you need to kind of have a bit of knowledge about how frames go together and what you need to do to put these together. So I'd say not necessarily for beginners, but it went together quite nicely. We got there in the end. The only issue I had, and this is often what I have with AMAX frames, they're very tight with their tolerances on screw holes. So normally perhaps you'd expect, oh well, there's a nice long M2.5 bolt go through the bottom plate, which is also part of the front plate, which as we said before, this is a sort of a split deck design, so you've got two plates to make up the bottom there. Anyway, so normally you expect to push the nut through and then easily screw on the standoff, and then there you go. But with this, the holes are very, very exacting. So I'd suggest you get a little bit like this, 2.5mm drill bit, high speed steel, available at your local hardware store. This is quite useful because it's got this little bit of metal on the end here, which allows it easily to go into a drill, so you can easily hold it in your hand, because I wouldn't put this in your electric drill at home and then start drilling, because that could cause problems. You want to very gently, just easy through with the screw, just putting it in, giving it a turn, being very careful obviously. Carbon dust is not your friend, and you want to wash any parts where you make carbon dust, if you're doing any work like this, straight away, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere, because it isn't very nice stuff. But very carefully just screw it in, and then you'll ream the hole out quite nicely, and then easily be able to push the screw in. It's a bit annoying I don't do that in the factory, but maybe that's the ethos. Maybe the designer perhaps likes sort of those tight screw fittings. Anyway, so we've got some M2.5s going through our standoffs and going through the arms as well. We have slightly longer ones for the arms, obviously, from our hardware pack. And then we have some 2.5 screws, M2 and M2.5, and they just go through one of the other holes here, and that sort of goes through, and then from the bottom plate through the arm and into the top plate, but only just sort of slightly into the top plate. You don't put like a bolt on top. And then obviously you put a mounting screw for your flight tower or flight stack, if you want to call it, and that goes through. And then in the pack you've got some nice long screws and these little sort of bolts that have the sort of nylon locking sort of section around them, so that they'll lock on. They're lock nuts. That's the word I was blindly searching for. These little lock nuts, which are nice that they're only small. You don't normally get them that size, so you've got plenty in there just in case you happen to have to reuse them or lose them or whatever. So that then will add extra strength. But even with just these two bolts, nice and strong, there's not any movement there that I can feel, so that's good. It's all gone together quite nicely. So we've got a 20x20 mounting option in here for our flight stack, and we're supposed to have a 16x16 and a 20x20 on the back here, but the width is, we just set our calipers to 20mm. The width is 20mm, but front to back is not 20mm. You can see that there. It's more like sort of 18mm, which is a bit of a pain. I'd imagine this was probably just a mistake in the manufacture. The machine wasn't just quite set up well and just put those two little holes there just that little bit too far forward. Hopefully in later runs on the manufacturing side of things, that's changed, but I might have to get in touch with them and try and source a new bottom plate. Anyway, we'll get to that later. We shouldn't have too much problem mounting stuff in there, whether we want to mount just a receiver or put a Vista unit in there, or stick a like a Calyx turtle, which is what I'm going to do with this, in there as well. So there we go, bit of a pain, but still. On top we've got these countersunk screws here, so it's nice and flat top deck, so we can easily mount our LiPo. It's got like a couple of foam pads in there. I'll probably use a bit of a grip, to be honest. The foam pads are okay, but if you've got a silicone mat or grip, which is the best stuff, then I'd use that instead, which is what I'll do. And it's not cut to shape or anything like that, so it's not like you got all the holes cut out for you that this is going to do. It's just a flat piece of foam, so yeah, I won't worry about that. On the front, as you can see here, we've got bits of carbon for mounting our camera to, with 2 holes. We can set our camera a bit further forward or a bit further back depending on our lens length, but also we can then adjust, as you can see there, where these side plates go. They can go slightly in a bit for a 40mm camera, or slightly out a bit, as we've got here, for a 19 or 20mm camera. We can squeeze in there, and they're nicely solidly in there, so hopefully we shouldn't get any jello or anything like that perhaps, but we'll see how it goes. I've got a ND filter for the turtle that I'm going to put on this Cadex turtle to get HD footage, so I'm not going to have a mounting for a action camera or anything to keep the weight down. So if I put a Cadex turtle in there, we'll see how it goes, and I've got an ND filter hopefully to cut down any jello that we might get from our footage, but we'll get to that whenever we get around to building it in a couple of weeks time. Anyway, so that's a mounting option. Let's have a look at some dimensions. We'll start off with calipers to get some thicknesses. So our arms are about 4mm thick. The narrowest point they are about 9mm, and at the widest point about 11mm. So if you're putting some race wire in there, just be aware of that. Our top plate is, say, about 1.5mm. Our medium, or sort of deck plate, so come to it's about 2mm, and then our bottom sort of part of our deck is about 1.5mm again. So, and then we can get into that. I don't think we can get in there. Oh, we can do it there. I would imagine it's about 1.5mm for our mounting plates on the side there for our camera. So there we go. Oh, and the height in here is about 20mm. So take that into consideration when you're working out what sort of flight tower stack you want to put in there. Obviously 20 by 20mm. Let's get our tape measure out that we can measure our arms. So on the diagonal across they are 174, yeah, about 174 motor post to motor post across, and then side to side we've got 135mm, 135, and then front to back 110mm, maybe 109mm. So it's an H frame, it's a bit compressed, it's wider than it is longer, as you can probably see actually now looking at it like that. Move that out of the way, and we're now going to go for our weight. Get our trusty kitchen scales in, and 49 grams, not too bad for a frame this size. That means we've got 200 grams left over, there or thereabouts, to have our motors, our camera, our flight stack, our battery strap, all our screws and everything else, our VTX, our battery pad, and our battery itself. So what battery do we want to use with this then? If we're making considerations about how we want to do our build, how do they fit? Well, we could go for a 1300 milliamp for us if we wanted to, and that does sort of fit on there. A bit tall, probably a bit overweight. To be honest, you probably get a lot of diminishing returns. Yeah, this has got a bigger capacity, but because of the extra weight, the motors have to work harder, so I wouldn't imagine flight times would be extended too much, and the performance would be affected, I think, so I wouldn't bother using a 1300 milliamp. What I would suggest is using an 850 like this 4S. That'll fit quite nicely, you should get some nice performance and flight times on there without any major issues. And if you want to go ultra lightweight, and you might want to if we're trying to get under that sub 250, we don't know yet with our other components we're going to use, we could try a 650. That should give us a little bit of flight time on the 4S, and that's nice and small there. This one I'm going to use, but it's got an XD60, so I'm going to disconnect that and put on an XD So it's got an XT30, and I'm going to disconnect the XT30 and put on an XT60. So there you go. Anyway, that's our options, 850 or 650 for our LiPo. Obviously you might want to do a 6S build. I don't have any 6S LiPo, so I couldn't show you what the size is for that. But yeah, overall, very happy. Nice build, nice frame. Got to put it together, nice little 4-inch, and see what we can do with getting under or getting close to that 250 size for our weight. So, hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you stayed all the way to the end. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much for watching my video. Appreciate you spending your time watching my content. Hit that like and subscribe, as we've already mentioned at the beginning. But if anyone's still here, please hit that like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and I really appreciate your continued support. So thanks so much. Links for all the bits and pieces in the description, and perhaps I'll catch you in another video in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.